across to Matt. He will talk to you about what he's going to do tonight. He's come from a lot of experience. He's travelled all around the world. He's chefed in London and Austria and Latin America. He was at the Icebergs and now he's gone out on his own. So he's got his own catering company. He's very generously offering a 10% discount to anyone here tonight that wants to take up his catering services. Now he will go off to Matt and Matt can talk to you about what he's doing.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. What I have been doing is, for the last 5 years, is running a small catering business. So the idea behind tonight is not so much to go through particular recipes or this is how you cook this, but more give you guys some ideas of how you should approach catering your events, dinner parties, cocktail parties, whatever it be. So that said, a question that I commonly get asked is, well, you know, how can you cook for so many people? How do, you know, I always find I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And the simple answer is the preparation, the mise en place. Having 90% of the work done before your guests get there, and in my case, before I get to my client's house. So what we're going to start with is a few canapes. I've got Peking duck pancakes here. Please feel free to get up and have one. Come and grab it, guys. And also feel free to jump in and ask questions. So they're just roasted duck, hoisin, some shallots and cucumber.
And they're all prepared yesterday or
about half an hour ago. So I'll show you how to make those. But look, that's the trick. I've got the caramelised onion goat's cheese tart here, but the tart shells are made. The caramelised onion goat's cheese is set in them. Got a little bit of egg custard here, which is just cream and egg at a 50-50 ratio. Pour those in there.
When you say 50-50, does that mean so you have an egg and the cream is the same volume as the egg?
Exactly. So what I'll generally do is just crack the eggs into a measuring cup, and let's say, for example, I end up with 200 mils of whisked eggs. Then I'll put 200 mils of cream in. A little bit of salt and pepper just to season it. Mix that up, and then that didn't mix that up properly. And then that will make the base for that tart. So when that bakes, that will set around the ingredients inside, and you'll have a nice warm tart. But things like this, you can bake. If you knew that your guests were getting here at 7, for example, you could put these in the oven at 22. They're going to bake, they're going to set, they're going to stay warm. You can give them just a quick flash in the oven and then serve them. But that is the really important thing. You'll see what I've got with a lot of my stuff here. So I'm going to run you through the main course stuff. Sorry. The meat here is a lamb rump. It's a cap-on lamb rump. That's been seasoned and already sealed off. So I've sealed that off in a pan, as I've done with the chicken. Now there's 2 reasons for that. So that's just a organic chicken there, the Maryland's there. The breast is just resting over here because it had been in the oven before. It gives it a really nice colour. You don't need to worry so much about browning it in the oven. I'm going to show you how I do that in the pans here. There's the 2 meats I've got there. And it just gets everything ready to go. The same with the sides. I've got a carrot and seeded mustard puree. That will go with the lamb. And a black barley and chorizo pilaf. That'll go with the chicken. So all of these things I've cooked in my production kitchen, and you guys have cooked during the day, you know, in your home. So whatever recipe you're doing, try and find something that can be pre-made and then reheated. So that pilaf is making a mess here. That pilaf is a perfect example. Same with the puree. The sauce for that chicken is a salsa verde. It's all pre-made. There's the jus for the lamb, which I've pre-made. So everything is more about when your guests get here, just finishing. So the meat will be cooked in the oven so it's hot, rested, and then just plating. So I've got some other canapes here. The other thing that I was going to say is I would always suggest only do one course sitting down. So you're not trying to cook an entree, set the entree, clear the entree, and then do your main and all that in between. So what I would say is do something like canapes, or what's been put out here, like a little grazing plate with some antipasti, cheese, crackers. Then that way it gives you some time to sort of actually, sit down, chat to your guests, and take a little bit of stress out of it for you. So here I've got arancini, which again, this is just any risotto base you have, or any recipe. Cool the risotto, roll it into balls, and then crumb it the way you crumb anything. If anyone doesn't know how to do that, feel free to jump in and ask how do you crumb things, but I'm assuming most people know.
So, Matt, these ones you can't prepare beforehand, so you've got to cook these?
Yeah, those would be cooked, but the preparation is all done before.
Yep.
So the risotto's made, they're crumbed before, and then if you didn't have a little bench fryer, you could just use a little pot on the stove with a thermometer in it, get the oil to 180 degrees, and then it will be there. Look, while these are going, what I want to show you is how I seal off the meat that I've done. So we've got the lamb rumps and the chicken. Now the lamb rumps are a bit different to how I would seal chicken or most meat. So most meat, when you're sealing it in a pan before you cook it in the oven, which is what's typical in kind of restaurant cooking, is done with a high heat. So high heat, meat goes in the pan, browns until it gets colour. Now the one exception to that is when you have meat where you use a fat cap that's still on the meat, like this lamb rump or something like a duck breast. What you're wanting to do, because there's a lot of flavour in that meat, in that fat I should say, and it keeps the meat very moist. So you don't want to cut it off and you don't want to get rid of it. Same with like a lamb rack or something like that. But if you cook it with a high heat, what you'll end up with is a big thick bit of fat, and it's kind of not nice and sort of soft and not very palatable in the centre. So what you actually do is put that into a cold pan on a low heat with just a light amount of oil in the pan. And as we do our other things here, you'll watch this is actually going to render out, and all that fat will come out into the pan, and it will slowly go a sort of deep golden brown, which is what we've ended up here with these two. So I'll leave that one go.
Matt, would that be the same with the duck in your entrees?
The duck pancakes.
Yeah.
So the duck pancakes, I roast the duck myself, but you can just buy the Chinese ducks. Again, I just buy these from Chinatown. They're just the little pancakes. It's a really easy one to do. People love it. I'd pre-cut these and then just roll them like I had them on the platter. Wrap them with cling film. Don't do them more than half an hour, 45 minutes out, because they might dry out a little bit or get a bit soggy. But again, they're all things that you can do ahead of time, so that when your guests get here, you can, focus on spending time with them.
So one of the things that Matt was talking to us about earlier is about if you're making too much and then it kind of gets to everyone's arriving at 7 and then you're trying to get dressed and you're trying to get your hair done and then it all blows up. So his idea is making it as easy as possible so that there's no disasters heading to people walking in the door.
90% of your work should be done before your guests get here. As long as you've done that, then finishing and serving should be relatively easy. So have stuff like you can see here. I've got my garnishes set out. I've got my salsa verde. I've got my lemons, which are going to go on the chicken. I've got my watercress, which will garnish on top of that. Have it all ready, have it all set out, and have it ordered and system the way you're going to sort of plate that dish. If you're going to be reheating, purees, don't be scared of the microwave. People always are, surprised that I use it, but you're just reheating something that's already cooked and already finished and seasoned. Obviously, you can't do stuff like meat or something that needs cooking. It's a finished cooked product that you're just trying to bring back up to temperature. then you don't have to stress out about it being on the stove and catching or burning or anything like that. That said, if you've got an induction top, sometimes they're really good where you can set them on a very low temperature and they'll just tick along and they'll never catch and never burn. So if you guys want to come up and just going to fry some parsley. That's another good little, a great little trick as a garnish herb is just frying fresh herbs. So you just get the oil nice and hot, about 180 degrees, drop the herbs in just till they sort of stop crackling, and then they'll be crisp and a translucent colour, and you can sort of scatter them over.
What herbs did you put in there?
That was parsley. That was just, sorry, I'm going to grab my platter back. So another thing that you can do with croquettes or arancini, if you have a, let's give that a little wipe. If you have a dipping sauce, instead of putting it into a container where people have to dip, make it part of the presentation or part of the actual dish. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And this is another thing. I'm not having a little snack here. Eat everything that you cook. Taste everything. Make sure the temperature's right, the seasoning's right. You know, these might be cold in the middle. It's cold rice. You've just fried it. It might not have got. But I'm happy with those.
Sorry, what is that sauce you put on there?
This is truffle and a truffle aioli. So it's just mayonnaise that I make. I'd advise just buying mayonnaise unless you can get pasteurised eggs, because there is a little bit of a danger with raw eggs. And then it's truffle oil and garlic in the mayonnaise.
And do you just put this in here yourself? Is that yourself?
That's just in a little pipe, in a little disposable piping bag. And this is the crispy parsley that I was talking about before, and that I just used to sort of garnish around the canapé and around the plate. But you can use this as, you could use basil, you can use oregano leaves, and once you've fried them off and they've gone crisp, they'll stay crisp as long as you keep them in a dry area and on some paper towel, so they don't need to be hot. And you could use those to garnish any of your sort of entrees or main course. They're great little garnishment. Guys, I've got other canapés coming, so anyone feel free to try one of those. What? It doesn't. It sort of softens up a little bit. So this is a sherb goat's cheese. So it's like a French goat's cheese. But it does soften, but it won't melt. But if you use like a cheese, like a cheese that would melt, then yeah, it would melt like that. So you guys will see what I was saying now about the. I might turn that extraction on. You'll see what I'm saying now about the. How I started with no oil in that pan. I don't know if you guys can see. Anyhow, that's the all that fat rendering out of the fat cap of the lamb. If we turn that up, you'll probably notice it's starting to get good colour. So you can see that sort of nice brown. It wants to go a little bit more, and then we'll turn the heat up and seal the underside of that.
So how long do you leave it on the inside?
So with this, it's more a matter of how long it is until you've got the right colour and that fat renders out. So you can see there it's like a light brown. We want him to go with a real dark brown, but you can see in the pan, you can see that there's probably 2 tablespoons of oil in there, but there was none when I started. So it was just lightly greased the pan, and that's the fat that's coming out of that, those hard fats rendering out. But there's just, whenever you've got a tart or something like that, it looks really nice if you just garnish it with something green. This tart I really like doing with just some chopped chives and cracked black pepper. Another thing that I think is really important with garnishes, and when you're choosing a garnish, don't just choose a garnish that looks pretty. Try and find something that actually suits the dish. So if you're going to use chives, pair it with something that works with chives. If you're going to use coriander, you know, you'd be doing that with something that was Asian or Mexican, or using fresh fish or seafood. If you're going to use, you know, fried rosemary or some chopped thyme, you're doing it with red meats or Bowrey flavours. So I kind of always think, don't just be green for the sake of having green on there. Make sure it at least adds something to the dish. Now another little trick to sort of keep your boards clean and also give a nice little effect. Baking paper. So what I do is get a sheet of baking paper, and you can get all this sort of set up ahead of time. Now it all looks a bit sort of uneven and the edges aren't cut, but all I do is scrunch the whole thing up, flatten it back out, and it's supposed to look messy.
That's his story, you stick to it.
And it's a great way to just sort of, you know, give a little bit of a visual effect on the board, as well as, you know, if you've got a little presentation board and you don't want to mark it, or sorry to so that meat's probably good now. Probably a bit far, but once we've done that, we're going to just turn it over, seal the underside, and this can be done on a higher heat. So now that we've rendered the fat cap out, that's where you need that low heat and cold start. We just want to get a sort of golden brown colour on the outside of the meat, and this is something that I find a lot of people at home don't do, which is a real game changer in terms of the quality of how roasted meat will come out. It's something that in every restaurant, in every commercial kitchen, in every good kitchen, you'll always seal meat and get good colour before it goes in the oven. So yeah, look, even a lamb leg, you know, like you can seal that lamb leg in a pan. The other thing that works really well is if you've got the, I don't know if you've seen the brand Le Creuset. They're like a enamel coated baking trays. You can actually put those directly onto heat and seal directly into them, and then straight into the oven.
Sorry, Matt, you're saying you can just put that on the gas top?
The Le Creuset pans, yeah. So they're a enamel coated cast iron, I think, and yeah, you can. They're fantastic. They're actually really good to cook meat in because they have such a nice even heat distribution. You get a really good colour when you're browning meat off. Yeah, I actually haven't tried it on induction, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I have induction and I use the crucifix. Yeah, it's pretty fabulous.
Alright guys, feel free to grab one of the little tarts. So now I'm going to seal the chicken off. The difference with the chicken is, and this would be the same with any meat, whether it be you know, a piece of fillet steak, fish, anything that doesn't have that thick fat cap on the top of the joint of meat, you're going to be sealing in a hot pan and nice and quick just till you get the desired colour and then out. And fish is another fantastic one where if you had a thick piece of fish like a salmon or a blue-eyed trevally or something like that, seal it off in the pans before you get there, get that perfect nice colour, and then just have it on the baking trays ready to go in the oven for the 3, 4, 5 minutes before you serve it. Don't be trying to sort of cook fish through in the pans when you guess it out. So just always season your meat before you go into your pan with just a bit of salt. You can use pepper if you want to as well. So we're going to start just going skin side down with that chicken. Wash my hands. So when I was talking about getting ahead earlier, that chicken and that lamb that I was showing you before that had already been sealed had already had about 8 minutes in the oven. Now, that's just going to mean it's driven some heat into the meat. It's already started that cooking process. Now I'm not going to have a 15-20 minute lag while I do the next phase of things here with you guys. So you can do stuff like that as well. So generally, this is a dish that I have on my menus, but it's a really great one to do as a share platter dish. And I'll literally just cut those Mary lambs in half, take the thigh away from the drumstick, and that would be kind of one portion that people could take. Actually, that's just raised a very good point. So the one thing that I'd always advise is don't necessarily, especially if you've got a larger group, don't try and do individually plated meals. You're just going to create a lot of work for yourself, and by the time you plate that, you're either going to rush it and it's going to look a bit sloppy, or you're going to take your time, get the plating right, and it's going to be cold. So always look at having like a shared platter type thing where you've got a main, and if you're using whole joints of meat, if you use a larger joint of meat, the longer it takes to cook, the longer it takes to get cold. Sorry to, so that's starting to get like a nice brown colour there. So yeah, always look at something where you can, if you, let's say you're doing two different types of main course even to, you know, give some variety, like tonight we're doing lamb and chicken, a couple of sides. If you're doing a dinner for 12 people, you really only have to then plate 4 different things. Your lamb dish, your chicken dish, your sides, and then put it out. Has anyone got any questions about anything that I've said so far, just while that sort of meat's cooking and we're coming to plate up of the main course? Depending on the meat, generally sort of 180 just to cook roasted meats, but what is really important is to give that meat a good rest. And while I'm on that topic, a lot of people say, well, how long should I cook it for? And unfortunately, There's just no answer to that question. Every oven's different, every piece of meat is a different size and a different thickness. The best way to do it if you're not confident with meat by touch, that being by feeling the spring, is to use a meat thermometer. So a meat thermometer will tell you the internal temperature of the meat, and that will let you know exactly where the meat's at in its cooking stage. So if you go online, because you won't remember what I tell you here, but 42 degrees internal temperature is rare, and 46 is medium rare, 48 is medium, and then around 50 is well done, and that's for red meat. Chicken, they say go to 80. I disagree. I think that's overcooked. I think as long as you hit around 72 degrees in the centre of chicken, you're safe and you're cooked through. Now, the one thing to remember there is meat will rest up in temperature. So if you've had the oven at 180 degrees, the centre, if you check it and pull it straight out, will continue rising in temperature as that sits on the bench and that meat rests. So with this lamb, for example, to get a nice pink finish from a piece around that size, I'm going to pull it out at about 47, 46 degrees, and that'll rest up nicely. It really is, and that's another important point about a dinner party. Don't cook something you haven't tried out. Try it out on your family, do it once, be comfortable with it. Even if it's not the most creative, fancy dish, you're better off doing something you can execute at 100% than trying something that's a little bit better and executing it at 50%. And that's something that I've always maintained within my catering business, because I'm not working in commercial kitchens. I'm working in people's domestic kitchens, so I need to scale my menus back so they're still beautiful, creative food, but they're simple. It's simpler food. It's food that I know I can go in and execute it at 100%.
Mate, do you often look for people to taste your food?
I beg your pardon?
I'm wondering whether you look for people to taste your food when you're playing around in the kitchen.
Well,
I'm sure there's probably some ladies in the room that do.
I do get asked that a bit on functions, I'll be honest. That is a common question, do you need a taster? But look, everyone gets to taste at the end of the night, so that's the good thing there. So I can tell by feel.
Thinking that Cindy was going to be eating on food.
Very
Normally when I do a function at someone's house, I would never do this at the house. It would be sealed off as the other 5 pieces were in my commercial kitchen. I just wanted to show you how it was done here. That's the other reason you want to do this before your guests get here. You can have this sealed off, you can clean down, you can air the place out, and you're not smoking the place out when everyone's here and you're trying to sort of setting smoke alarms off and whatnot.
So how far in advance do you actually set up your discount?
So I do it in the morning, but I would suggest that you do it so you can leave meat out on the bench for around sort of 2 hours and then safely put it back in the oven and serve. You can actually, the New South Wales Health Authority say you can actually leave it up for 4 hours. So
In summer or
makes no difference. That's their sort of set time. So I'd say they are basing that off worst case scenario. So I'd say they're basing that off the hottest kind of day they could. It's basically the 4-hour, 2-hour rule. It can be out of the fridge for 2 hours and be returned back to the fridge, or it can be out of the fridge for 4 hours and safely served. They don't give any criteria as to which type of food that is.
We are talking indoors now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, you don't want to leave food outside, I think, in any time unattended, but yeah, so you can do it ahead of time and then leave that out just on trays ready to go. Yes.
Something in the morning
Yep.
and they're not coming till 9.
Yep.
Do I put it after it's cooked? Do I put it in the fridge or do I just leave it out all day?
No, you definitely put that in the fridge. So if you were to seal off your chicken, get all this stuff like your purees and other components all cooked, then put it in the fridge. If you're going to Then you take it out of the fridge maybe an hour before you need it. Just let it come up to room temperature, get it on the trays that you're going to roast it or warm it on, and then cook it like that. Which is another thing that I was saying. So these potatoes here are often you chopped up with oven space. These things have been blanched off. They're cooked. A little cheap trick that I do is crisp them in the fry. You will not get crisper potatoes in any oven. And once they're I don't like to admit this.
How long do you blanch them for in the water?
Just till they're soft enough to crack. So what I do when I fry them, or if you're just going to roast them in a pan, the good trick if you're going to roast them in the pan is put the pan in the oven, put the oil in the pan and let it get smoking hot and then drop them into hot oil. Then they won't soak the oil. The oil will seal them and they'll crisp much better as opposed to just getting kind of oily.
Is there a preference with parboiling as opposed to?
Yeah, when I do it is so I can crack the potatoes, and I do that with the potatoes to create those sort of ripples and surface areas.
Pass that round so we can just get a bit of a feel.
Sure.
Oh no, it's coming down.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Excuse me, Matt. I had a customer that religiously bought duck fat off me by the litre,
Okay.
like 3 litres at a time for his deep fryer.
Yep.
And he swore he actually lost weight when he deep fried his duck fat potato, which I looked at his face and said, "You're a liar."
Well, I don't know. Look, I don't know how something as high in calories as duck fat could help you lose weight.
He's all black and blue.
But there is a lot of kind of I've heard a lot of things lately that animal fats, they're not as bad as what they had previously been made out to be. So people that are using, as opposed to vegetable oils now, you know, some people are suggesting that you're better off with butter or animal fats to cooking. And there are certain dishes where it just lends itself to using animal fat. People kind of freak out about using beef tallow or duck fat or chicken fat to cook in, but there are certain dishes where it's really nice and it just works really well. And potatoes cooked in duck fat are an example of that.
So what is the best oil to cook in at? Is it
With a
there's
fry.
avocado, there's peanut, there's olive? Do you have a preference as well?
Look, with olive oils, I generally don't cook with olive oils because they've got what they call a very low flash point. So if you're frying in a pan, they'll smoke really early and they'll get a burnt taste very early. So any kind of vegetable oil, rice bran oil, if you're doing high temperature frying.
What about with salmon?
With salmon, I'd probably just be using a rice bran oil, but salmon has got a lot of its own fat in it, and you probably notice if you've ever pan fried a piece of salmon, you end like I did with the lamb there, you end up with twice as much fat in the pan as what you started. So I use quite a minimal amount and the fat will actually come out of the salmon and you're almost cooking in its own fat, which sounds a bit strange, but it's, you know.
Smoking a house down.
Matt,
Apologies about that, yep.
Matt, I just find every time I cook fish or salmon, I always, it sticks. So,
Yep.
the crispy bit, which is always the best.
Yep.
So it's sticking, so am I cooking it too high or?
So the first thing to look at is your pans. Now, most people say, "Oh, is non-stick best?" I personally don't like non-stick because you don't get a good colour on it. So I'm using a high carbon steel pan, but then you have to season your pans. So it's like, you know, if you've got an old barbecue, nothing will ever sort of stick to it because it's really blackened and the oil goes into it. And the way you season a pan is you turn a high heat up and you put oil in it and you wait till that smokes and then you wipe it out and you repeat that process about 4 or 5 times. What happens is the texture of the steel, if you look at it under a microscope, actually has pores. They open up and they'll take that oil. So even when you clean it, there's a layer about that far of the steel that will have oil. These pans, because I use them all the time, I don't need to season them. They're constantly just in the kitchen, getting oil, getting heat. They're always seasoned. Don't put your pans in the dishwasher because it'll strip all of that. You actually want to leave. I'll show you at the end of the night how that pan looks when it's clean. It looks shiny. It looks glossy, and that's just the oil that's in the steel.
So do you believe in not cleaning? Do you believe in not cleaning completely? Because I've read somewhere. And
Yes, I do.
Where they don't.
So you've got to wash it, otherwise it's not sanitary. But yes, give your pans a scrub out with some water, give them a good spray so all the residual food is gone, and then they're safe. the safest thing as far as food goes is temperature. If there was anything left on that pan, once it goes on and gets 300 degrees, it's dead. So cleaning with water till something's squeaky clean is not necessarily sanitizing, that surface. Once that surface goes back on the fire, then it's clean. All right.
How many times do you have to fill the pan?
Yeah, just once at the start, and then if you're using it fairly frequently, sorry, who asked that question? If you're using it fairly frequently, then that's fine.
Not doing it.
Then it will hold that seasoning as long as you don't sort of clean it or put it in the dishwasher.
So Matt, the pans that you use,
Yep.
what are they?
This brand here is Circulon. I bought those specifically because I needed pans that would work on induction as well as gas when I started catering, and I did some research on what was a good pan for both gas and I've been really happy with these. So that the brand is, I think it's Circulon.
And
They're
we're
real-
like a chef's warehouse or something like that. You don't
No, they sell these in both. You can get these in chef stores, and they range those in sort of normal, like your David Jones and stuff like that. But I specifically got that one because I researched it was a good pan across both surfaces. Right. So now I'm going to sort of start getting ready for plating up the main. The meat's resting. You happy to? Yep. So it's just experience, but I know that lamb is definitely cooked. I can just feel that that's probably on the more well done side of sort of medium. That one's probably gone a bit further. So it takes a bit of time, but like I said, look online about the meat temperatures. It'll be easy if you just Google them, write them down, get a meat thermometer, and it will work every time. If the meat is that temperature, it will be that colour, and you just play around with it, figure out where you like to get it to, and then you never need to ask the question, well, how long do I cook this for? Because one leg of lamb could be that shape, one long and thin. It's two totally different things. Always obviously probe the centre of the piece of meat. And the same with pork. Again, they'll say 80 degrees. I don't agree. I think you can take pork to about sort of high 60s, early 70s, and it's fine.
I've
There's
never used a thermometer. How long do you go to the eating for to do that?
It'll take about sort of 10 seconds to just find, the temperature of what you're probing and then give you a reading.
But when it stops going up?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So you can see as well, I'm not scared to use that microwave to cheat, so I don't have more pots that I'm having to stir and whatnot.
So the pumpkin, did you say pumpkin and seeded mustard?
Carrot.
Carrot and seeded mustard,
Yep.
and that's it?
So what I do with that is the carrots are cooked with a little bit of onion and garlic in milk until they're what I call grandma soft. And grandma soft, I mean how your grandma used to cook vegetables till they're within an inch of their life. Yes, until they are soft. Take them out and then puree them in a food processor with an obscene amount of butter. No, strain all the milk off and a lot of butter. If I use a kilo, so for restaurant cooking and my catering, if I use a kilo of carrots, I use 250 grams of butter the entire lot.
Do you use the milk for anything else?
No, you throw it away once it's done. There's no real science to sort of restaurant food. A lot of it is, they're the potatoes. So that's what I was saying, if your oven's full and you've got no space, these ones that I used to have commercial ones and one broke and I had a job on and I was stuck for a fryer for this one job because I had two jobs out. Someone said to me, just run to Kmart and get one of the little ones and send that on the smaller job. I bought that fryer for $28 from Kmart. I now have 7 of them. And they are better than the commercial ones that I used to pay $300 for. So even just to have, even just for your roasts on like Christmas, and to get, if you've got a turkey in there that's 6 kilos, you will not get a potato crispy. It's as simple as that. If you've got something like this, obviously you don't want to eat too much of deep fried food, but if it's on occasion and it's just when you're having parties and it's to get you out of trouble, then you can do that. The other thing that you can do, so this oil's fine to reuse a few times. It's pretty obvious when you've used it too much. It gets a sort of dark colour and it just looks unpleasant.
What sort of oil was that?
That's just vegetable oil. So, and then you want to strain it every time you use it. So once that oil's cool, strain it through a fine sieve to get any particles out of it, and then just store it back in the bottle. That's another thing I would always advise. Always try and buy pans that have the full steel handle, because especially when you're just cooking small things, you don't have to then transfer that to a tray, just straight in the oven. Okay, so when I cut the chicken legs, I'm going to just put that as a portion of a drumstick and a thigh. If you come down where you see, and this is the same as if it's raw or cooked, if you come straight down on the natural kind of line where that joins, you'll hit the cartilage and it won't even, I've said that and I missed it. It'll just go straight through. So that chicken probably needs a second more, but that's fine. You can, or that's another thing that I'd say. Better to carve it and have it slightly underdone, and then just give it another blast in the oven for 5 minutes. So with the breast, I'll probably cut that breast into. Normally, I'd cut it into probably 2 or 3 pieces, depending on how you kind of want to serve the dinner. But this one, I'm just going to carve into thinner pieces so that everyone can have a try.
Mate, do you have a preference of knife brand?
I've got a few different knife brands. I'd have to say of what I would say is a good entry level knife would be the Globals or Victorinox. But the most important thing with any knife is regular sharpening. It doesn't matter if you've got a $600 high carbon, handmade Japanese knife, or you've got, a $30 knife made in Brazil from average steel. If you sharpen that knife once a week, it's going to be better than the $600 knife. The best things that I found, and this is what I got my mum, because I'd always go around to her house, and she's a fantastic cook, so I'm not going to drop her in it. She's a really good cook, but she has terribly blunt knives. And it frustrates. Yes. So what I got her was, instead of a sharpening steel or a stone, there are 3 ceramic wheels that go into a little plastic contraption with water in the bottom. Now ceramic is the best thing to sharpen high quality blades with, because it's less abrasive than steel or actual stone. That thing is amazing. All you do is pull it 15, 20 times through the coarsest one, the next one. Do that to your knives once a week and they'll stay in perfect nick. Thank you. I'm not used to talking and cooking at the same time.
Do you get those at Kmart too?
The
Sharpener?
no, those you probably need to go to a knife shop or like a specialty cooking store.
So what's in this one here?
This is the black barley pilaf, which is chorizo, mirepoix, and that is the French word for mixture of onions, celery, carrot and garlic, sautéed off, and then the grain, which is the black barley, just goes into that, white wine, chicken stock, and just reduce the white wine and chicken stock till the grain's cooked. So I'll plate up the lamb first. I'll show you a way that I plate this. So the first thing I'd be doing is carving the lamb. What's important when you carve red meat is that you carve against the grain. So what you'll look for is the fibres of the meat, which way they travel through that cut of meat. Look at it before it's cooked, it's kind of easier to see. Like a whole fillet, for example, the fibres go lengthway through it. Some meat is a bit tricky, they'll kind of twist and change direction. But on a lamb rump, you'd kind of think, oh, let's do nice slices that way. But that's the way the grain actually goes this way up through the rump. If you're carving onto fat, like a duck breast or something like that, it's easiest to turn the fat down onto the board and then carve down there. So you can see what I was saying before about how that breast has made that sort of pink kind of medium rare meat very even. That's what you achieve from keeping it in the on the bench out of the oven for that 10 minutes.
That's what I want to put in it for
Something like that, yeah.
So it's really interesting when I said before, like, well, how long is cooked. Now those two pieces of meat are pretty identical in size. They both went into the oven at the same time. They both got sealed off the same way. And this one is a little bit less cooked. And why? I don't know. But that's why it's sort of important that you temp your meat and that you look at it. But I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So now that that's carved,
I'm just curious, do you have a preference for the plastic boards or timber, or it doesn't matter?
I don't mind. I just have to use plastic for. They say that I use timber boards at home and they're fine. And I grew up with my mum cooking on timber boards and never got sick because I can't legally use a timber board to prepare food on. They say that plastic is a safer surface to clean. So what I do when I'm plating a large platter with a puree like that, I put a generous amount, maybe 2.5, 3 dollops, and then once I've got it set at one end, I just take that spoon on a 45-degree angle, put it. That's a great idea. Sorry about that. Put the spoon on sort of a 45-degree angle, and then just push it straight down through the thing. So that'll create like a nice. You can do that with any kind of mash.
Very nice Instagram post. That's what's great.
So then I want to get the meat on the fat cap side up. Now I've turned it down and sat it back in the pan juices that I've carved from. And what that's going to give, it's going to sit back in sort of the fat that's come out of it and the juices. It's going to make it really nice and glossy. Just place that. See that really nice sheen the meat's got just from being turned back into the. So now I've got my sauce. A good little trick if you've got a jus or a hot sauce. Get a jug that you do milk for coffee in. Make sure you've got a little trivet on the stove and that can go straight on, so that you're not mucking around with spoons and pots and then we'll just pour the jus.
This is obviously something.
That's something I prepared earlier.
Is that like just a red wine jus?
It is a red wine jus. If you want to make your own red wine jus, I'd advise finding a good butcher. The best one I know of is in Mallara, Victor Churchill's. They have a beef stock or a veal stock that you can buy. It's a totally real veal stock, the way that you make it in a restaurant or the way that I make it in my kitchen. Then you literally would just mix that with wine and port and reduce it down on the stove until it gets to a jus consistency. Put it in little takeaway containers and freeze it in your freezer and it'll last a year more. Just going to garnish that with a little bit of watercress again, just for that sort of colour. But again, watercress is a really nice spicy kind of but fresh salad leaf that will go really nice with red meat. So guys, there's a little, and that is actually quite an easy plate up to do, but it's a nice sophisticated looking dish. It's a really good one for a dinner party.
Beautiful. Very.
So now with Alright guys, so I'll plate up the chicken dish now. This is the black barley pilaf. Again, it was fully cooked, seasoned, ready to go. And I've literally just heated that in the microwave.
Sorry, Matt, what was that cooked in again?
So onions, carrots, celery and chorizo in the base with some chopped thyme, a bit of garlic. And then once you sweat that off, and then white wine and chicken stock. And then you basically just cook it, reducing that liquid away. If you need to add a bit more water, you just add a bit more water until the liquid out. So what I do with something like this that's a grain is I'll put it down on the plate and then form it so it almost makes like a nice bed. So that's going to go across the base of the whole platter. It also helps keep the chicken nice and warm. And then I'll use that, so that's almost like a colour contrast of what's going to go on top of it. So what I'm going to do with the chicken, normally I just cut that breast into into half, and then the Marylands into 2 pieces, because you kind of, everyone's going to take a piece that size at the table. So again with the chicken, I've just double checked that that's cooked, because obviously with chicken you always want to be careful that it is, but that's definitely cooked through onto the bone. Again, I've just rolled it back through the pan juices to sort of gloss that skin up and give it a good colour. Then with that, I'll just be placing that sort of randomly, so there's some gaps and spaces along the barley. That I wouldn't normally carve like that, it's just going to make it easier for you guys to have a taste. And I've got another breast which I'll carve in a moment. That one's just lagging behind a little bit because it was the one I demonstrated how we seal off.
Can I ask you about salt? It's been a big debate lately about salt.
Yes.
This thing about Malayan salt, really good salt, don't get the crappy old table salt that we all put up with.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts, I agree with that, with the exception of if you're just cooking like a sauce or something like that. So if you're going to make bolognese, if you can find me a chef that can tell you which bolognese was seasoned with table salt as opposed to like a flake salt, this is a Malden salt and I use Murray River salt, I'll give him $100. But if you're seasoning meat, if you're finishing onto salads, if you're doing that, then I 100% think that those good salts, and you can taste the minerals, and you can, especially those pink salts, which are, I think it's usually an oxidisation of minerals that make it that pink colour. They're beautiful products, and I think they're definitely worth the money. But just for like, if you're putting salt into water to boil pasta, use table salt. If you're going to season a bolognese, use table salt. But if you're going to be putting it onto meat and cooking it, finishing it on the plate, definitely use a quality salt. And I really like the Malden salt, which is the Murray River, which is an Australian salt. So I just place the lemons around there, just sort of rustically and randomly place them in the gaps. And then the sauce for this one, as opposed to a jus, is a green olive and preserved lemon salsa verde. So I'm just going to sort of spoon some of that across the chicken. Some just around the peeler. Another thing, although I didn't get much on this because I didn't roast much chicken in this instance, but quite often I'll have roasted large amounts when I'm doing a bigger job. Don't pour that roasting juice down. Whip it back through your grains. It's really beautiful. So that's that dish. Again, it's a great sort of shared table platter. Feel free to have the breast will probably be easier, but if you bring I can cut the thigh and legs up in a moment. Has anyone got any questions about the main course? I'll show you how those potatoes that have just been fried and warmed up come out. Again, literally they're just going to be straight into a bowl, and this would be a perfect example of when I would use a flake salt as opposed to just table salt. It'll make all the difference in terms of how it looks and how it eats. So I'd season those.
My potatoes are
Now I know that looks like a lot of salt, but it'll work its way to the bottom, and potatoes and salt are great. Sure. Yep. Final course and the final bit of the presentation, which is dessert. So what I've got for tonight is a spiced orange panna cotta with a little citrus sort of salsa on top. But what is, I think, the key here, and this is just one example of many desserts that are like this, have a dessert that is just ready to go. So you could do a panna cotta, which is set in a glass. You take it out of the fridge, you put whatever on top, and you serve. Chocolate mousse, a creme brulee would be the same thing, where you're just burning with a blowtorch. Like a set cold chocolate tart, like a ganache, chocolate ganache tart. Anything that you can just have done, where once you've finished, you've already been working in the kitchen, you're clearing the table of your guests, you don't want to be messing about trying to do dessert. Always avoid ice cream when you've got large groups. It will melt, it will look sloppy, it just won't look good, and it'll be a puddle by the time you get it to the table. If you really want to have ice cream, I'd suggest that you pre-ball it. So scoop it and put it onto a baking tray with paper, and then put that in the freezer, so you're taking it out and just placing it onto the plate. So I think the best way to serve these is once I start sort of just garnishing them, just come up and grab one. There was little demi-tasse spoons here. But this is another thing that you can do if you've got like a panna cotta or a chocolate mousse and you're having a cocktail party. Or you wanted to do a dessert table or a dessert station, you can do a whole lot of small little desserts like this. As long as they're done ahead of time, I mean it is a lot of work to do it ahead of time, but as long as it's done before your guests get there, it's nice and easy.
There's more on top. Don't be to take those out one.
So this, the dessert, the panna cotta is simply just, oh thank you, that's lovely. Cream, honey and sugar with orange zest, cinnamon sticks, cardamom and a little bit of clove. Bring all of that to the boil. Just the appropriate amount of gelatin based on any kind of sort of standard panna cotta recipe. Strain all the orange zest, sorry, there's saffron as well, out of the cream mix. Pour it into containers and sets in the fridge. Then this here is simply ruby navel oranges, ruby grapefruits and navel oranges that are just cut down into segments. The juice that comes out of them while I'm segmenting them, I just reserve. Reduce that down by half. Put the same amount of that as sugar and you make like a orange syrup reduction. Put the fruit, when that cools, put that back through the fruit and that's it.
Are they ready to go?
They are ready to go. On board, will that make it easy for you? I'll give you the spoons to these, so if you want to have a second, feel free.
Dying to get one. Thank you. Very helpful bug
What other fruits might you put on top?
If it was a vanilla panna cotta, berries are lovely. I do another panna cotta, which is, that's a chocolate mousse. Well, I think berries would be good. I don't know. These are the two that I sort of do most frequently. Plum, that's another one I've done. So when stone fruit, when that's in season, if you get the blood plums and just poach them with a little bit of rose water. You can do, that's another dish that I do, which is it's actually a yogurt panna cotta. So sheep's yogurt panna cotta with rose water poached blood plums.
Why do you eat sheep's yogurt?
Even Coles and Woolies, you get the Meredith Valley. You should get the Meredith Valley sheep's yogurt and goat's yogurt now. Well, a lot of them. Not all, like the big ones. Yeah. The brand is Meredith Valley. And they do. It's really nice. A little bit sharper.
Do you make up your own recipes or do you use
Both. Yeah. Some of it is stuff that I've, done in my sort of career. Some of the stuff that I kind of just come up with, and other stuff is recipes from books.
I just ignore Next time I'm listening to you sleep,
That would be that bad. That was a
Clean up and pack down. Is there any questions that anyone has for me?
If we wanted to have you come to an event, do you have like a minimum number or something like
like that, or like
No,
anything like that?
no. So I've done dinner parties for as little as 8 people, and I've done sit-down events up to about 190 people, and cocktail up to 300. So
He's just told us he'll come and cook for us each night.
no, there's no jobs too small. There are some jobs that are too big, but you know, most weddings and sort of parties I can accommodate. And I do also travel out of Sydney, so I can do weddings sort of within 2 or 3 hours drive from here. Yeah.
So
What's your favourite? Sorry, go. Who was asking a question? What's your favourite thing to cater for?
I don't really have one. Cocktail parties are good. There's a lot of work in the lead up, but it's a little bit sort of easier and less stress during service. But yeah, it's all much the same.
What's your favourite thing to cook?
I love cooking fish. I love. I hate pastry and dessert. I don't hate it. That's not fair. I love all cooking, but that's the thing that I dislike the most. The thing that I like the most is that might sound a bit strange, but sort of the butchery side of things and fishmongering and stuff like that, where you're actually starting with raw produce, whole animals, whole fish, and then breaking them down into the different cuts and what you're going to use them for. I really enjoy that work. And unfortunately it's a real dying art, because you know, when I was an apprentice chef, fish came in whole, lambs came in 4 quarters, joints of meat came in on the bone and whole, and we butcher them. Now it just comes packet. You know, some places, you know, it comes already crumbed and frozen in a box. So it is something that you speak to young chefs and be like, oh, can you fillet those fish for me? And they're like, oh, surely you can fillet a fish. Oh, I've done it in TAFE. And it's like, have you done it more than once? And it's like, no, just once in TAFE. Don't worry, I'll get someone else to do it.
So who cooks at your house?
Me. My wife can't cook. She can't cook toast.
Same here. That's yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And as I said before, Matt's generously offered 10% to anyone here tonight. So if you've got any events coming up, have you got your cards?
I do.
He's going to
I'll
hand out some
I'll
cards.
leave them on the bench and people can take one if they want.
I'm going to make up an event.
I look forward to it.
It's just going to be Jenny on her own. Don't get nervous. It's not awkward or anything.
Can I just say I recommend that, because he did my son's 21st in February, no, January, and he did it one
She chose well.
Excellent. Okay, ladies, so we're just going to quickly go over the new memberships that we've got, so you can all hear what's going on. Thank you. I just want to have a quick talk, and then anyone that's interested can go and have a chat with Jackie, and she can explain the membership a little bit more. So what we've tried to do to change a few things up and make it more exciting, like I said before, we've got all these experts on board now, so we're going to have a lot of more events with panels. We've got psychiatrists and plastic surgeons, we've got creative directors, we've got social media experts, sales and marketing, family law, a sexologist. Yep, she's got Australia's Millionaire Matchmaker. We've got lots of really fun ones coming up. So what we've put together is a new membership, which is called the Loved Up membership. It's $697 for 12 months. But you never pay for an event. So you can go to any event that you want to. And as you'll see tonight, Nick's been filming the event. So the other benefit of that one is we have an online portal in the back of our website. You can watch all the events live after the night. So if you can't make an event, then you get to watch it on the portal. We'll have webinars also where the experts will be online for half an hour answering any questions that you may have. and that will kind of be coming up all the time. We're moving into a new office space in Miranda, which is very exciting, and they also have an event space there. So some of the events will be held there, which is a great space to have. We'll be doing a lot more networking from there also.